Okay, so think about this for a second. A killer who doesn't just, disappear after the crime,
Right.
but instead they leave this trail deliberately.
Yeah, it's almost like they want to be seen, like they need to be known for what they've done. It's
Yeah,
counterintuitive.
exactly. We're not talking about the ones who try desperately to blend in, to just vanish. These are different. These are individuals who, through these awful acts, seem to almost crave the spotlight or maybe the shadow of infamy.
It's a really disturbing contradiction, isn't it? Committing these terrible acts, but then also having this hunger for people to know about it. What could possibly be behind that? Wanting to be more than just, well, a criminal, but a notorious figure.
Right, and that's what we're getting into in this deep dive. We're trying to understand maybe just a little the mindset behind this. We've got 3 individuals, each left their mark on criminal history in really unique and pretty unsettling ways.
Yeah.
We have the Zodiac killer, the cryptic letters, the codes that taunted everyone.
Still unsolved, some of them.
Right. Then there's Dennis Rader, BTK. He went silent for years and just popped back up to kind of reignite the terror.
The very calculated return.
And Israel Keys, so meticulous, so calculating. He basically controlled his own story, even after they caught him.
Our exploration today, it's drawing from Roadside Tales, Killers Who Wanted to Be Found. And this source really looks at these cases through that specific lens, the desire for recognition.
So our mission here is to explore why. What are the motivations behind needing to be infamous? How do they use communication or clues or whatever to make sure they weren't just forgotten?
Okay, let's start with Zodiac. California, late 1960s, you've got these attacks, seemingly random, couples in parked cars. At first, nobody sees a connection, no clear motive.
Yeah, just chaos, it seemed. And then things take this really chilling turn. Strange letters start arriving at newspapers, handwritten.
And what really stood out right away was how bizarre they were. Not typical ransom notes or anything. They were cryptic. And each one was signed with that weird symbol.
Oh, crosshair in a circle.
Exactly. That became the Zodiac signature. Instantly recognizable, instantly linked to the fear that was growing. You have to wonder, what was the point of such a distinctive mark repeated every time?
And the letters themselves, deeply unsettling. The writer flat out claimed responsibility for the murders.
And he gave details, right? Things only the killer would know.
Precisely. Stuff the investigators couldn't argue with. So boom, you have this direct line, this one-sided conversation from the killer.
What's also really fascinating and kind of ups the ante is the ciphers. He included these complex coded messages in some letters.
Right. It wasn't just, I did it.
No, it was like a challenge, a dare to the public, to the police, figure me out. It suggests a certain intellectual arrogance, maybe. He didn't just want to shock. He wanted to outsmart people.
And the fact that some codes are still unsolved after all this time, it just feeds into that whole mystique, the notoriety he was probably after.
He wasn't subtle either. He taunted them. Dared people to crack the codes, dared the police to catch him. It was like this twisted game he was playing.
He set the rules. And you get the sense he was just reveling in all the attention, all the fear.
Yeah, and the source points out a particularly disturbing moment. The threat he made about attacking a bus full of kids, if his letters weren't published.
This is brazen.
It is. It shows this wasn't someone trying to hide it all. It was manipulation, using public fear to get his voice heard, to feel powerful, What does that tell you about his need for control?
And yet, despite this massive manhunt, tons of suspects, decades of work, they never definitively got him.
Never. He's still an enigma, a ghost, really.
But in a twisted way, he got what he wanted, didn't he? He got the fame, the notoriety.
He absolutely did, just like the source suggests. Zodiac became this huge, notorious figure. That symbol, everyone knows it. The unsolved crimes, people are still obsessed.
He evaded justice, but he definitely left his mark.
Okay, let's jump forward a bit. Wichita, Kansas. Dennis Rader. He gave himself that awful name. BTK.
Bind, torture, kill. Yeah. Between 74 and 91, he murdered 10 people that we know of. The community was terrified. And then, nothing. He just seemed to vanish.
Total silence for, over a decade?
Yeah, 13 years.
It must have seemed like it was finally over. No more BTK crimes, no leads. People probably started to breathe again, thinking that chapter was closed. But the key thing for our discussion is how he came back. Unexpectedly. Deliberately. In 2004.
It really was like a monster waking up. Suddenly, letters started showing up again. Packages with, disturbing items inside, clues.
Mementos from victims sometimes.
And then, that floppy disk,
Mm.
which turned out to be huge.
Right.
But it was all a very calculated move, was that? A conscious choice to break that silence. Why? After all that time staying hidden, why resurface?
Well, that return was ultimately what did him in. It shows that intersection between wanting attention and just making a massive miscalculation.
He actually asked the police, didn't he?
He did. He contacted them and asked essentially, hey, can you trace a floppy disk? And they told him no, incorrectly.
Wow. So he thought he was safe.
Seems like it. He felt he could keep communicating without getting caught.
And that one piece of bad information, may be good information for justice, sealed the deal. The metadata on the disk.
Yep. Hidden data. It had his name, linked him to his church. It was the thread they needed to unravel everything, led straight to him.
So, back to the why. Why risk it all? He'd gotten away with it for so long, why come back?
The source suggests it was this powerful craving. For the headlines again, for the fear he used to inspire, for the attention. It's like being anonymous just became unbearable. The need to be remembered, maybe reclaim that dark legacy, it just outweighed the risk. Was it sudden or was it always there, that need?
Hard to say for sure, but the way the source presents it, it sounds like Rader didn't just stumble into being found. He actively orchestrated this comeback. He wanted the notoriety again. He basically set the stage for his own capture, didn't he? Driven by this, I don't know, insatiable need to be the bad guy in the story again.
Okay, now let's shift to Israel Keyes. He's more recent, and just as unsettling, maybe in a different way. What really stands out with him is the planning, the sheer meticulousness.
Those murder kits.
Exactly. Burying them all over the U.S. years before he even committed the crimes nearby. That shows a level of premeditation, of patience, that's frankly chilling.
And unlike Zodiac or BTK, there wasn't really a pattern to his victims. No clear connection, geographically or otherwise.
Which made him incredibly hard to track, made the crimes hard to link. He just seemed to move around, pick victims almost randomly. It left this baffling trail of seemingly separate tragedies.
His lifestyle helped too, right? Very transient.
Very. He'd travel, lay low for a while, then strike. It paints this picture of a really calculating patient predator who flew under the radar for years.
Until he slipped up using a victim's debit card. That's how they got him in 2012. Even the most careful ones make mistakes, I guess.
But it's what happened after they caught him that really fits our theme today. He started talking.
Willingly, wasn't it?
Yeah, confessing to murders they hadn't even linked to him yet. He started giving them glimpses into just how wide his reach was, much bigger than they first thought.
But it was on his terms, right?
Completely. That's the fascinating part, how controlled it was. He'd give just enough detail to confirm, yeah, he did that one too. He even drew maps for the FBI, marked locations. It felt like a performance, almost like he was curating his own dark legacy. What do you make of that? Revealing things, but only so much.
And then he'd just stop. Just as suddenly. He claimed there were more victims, more secrets out there, but then clam up. Refused to give the full details.
Even locked up, he was maintaining control. Control over the information, deciding what people would know and what would stay hidden forever.
Which leads to the end. His suicide in prison, before they could get everything out of him.
He took those secrets with him, and he left behind that final, really chilling symbol.
The drawing. 11 skulls.
Yeah, no names, no details, just this stark, haunting image. A final taunt, maybe? A reminder the victims will never know about, the closure he deliberately withheld.
So Keyes got caught, yes. But everything he did after his arrest, it really points to this deep need to orchestrate how his story came out, to control the narrative, and ultimately leave behind all these unanswered questions, this legacy of mystery.
Looking at all three, Zodiac, BTK, Keyes, you see this common thread pretty clearly, don't you?
Yeah, definitely.
These weren't guys just focused on the act itself and then getting away clean. There was something else going on, this persistent, unsettling need to be known, to leave a mark that went way beyond the crime scene itself.
You see it so clearly. Zodiac's taunting letters, the codes meant to grab headlines, BTK's comeback, which ironically led to his capture, and Keyes with his calculated confessions and that final cryptic drawing.
Their methods were different, absolutely. But that underlying desire for recognition, maybe even for infamy, seems like a really significant driver for all of them.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What is it that pushes someone who does such terrible things to also crave acknowledgement, to want their name, their actions recorded in, the history of crime?
It's a profound and disturbing question. It touches on ego, power, the dark corners of the human psyche. Maybe thinking about this unsettling need for recognition gives us just a small glimpse into, well, the complexities of human motivation and maybe that chilling, enduring nature of infamy itself.